Hi, everybody. This is Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. We have an awesome show with a good old friend of ours today, Dave Schwartz. We're going to talk wild. We're going to talk about leaving the TV world and going into the NHL glamorous world and much more coming up.
That's right. This is Dawn of Sports, starring Dawn Mitchell. Great to have Dave on. Haven't talked to him in a while. This will be fun to catch up. Our producer is Alex Haugen. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We want to thank our sponsors, including Natrium, natrium.com, Aquarius Home Services, and Minnesota Masonic Charities. Also, one of our new sponsors across the network is Giggly THC Beverages. Go to giggly.com, Gigli.com. Use the promo code Giggly, promo code Giggly North to get 50% off your first order. It's a great deal. We love that stuff, so try it out. Back to Dawn.
Just the name Giggly makes you smile, doesn't it?
It's awesome. Yes, it's a great name for a product.
Well, great name for a product. We also have an awesome person on our show today. Dave Schwartz, you remember, was a big star for many, many years. And I'm not saying he's old. Former KARE 11 sports anchor and reporter. You also saw him on weekend mornings doing news and everything. He was out in many Olympics. Now he's the senior manager of communications and engagement for the Minnesota Wild and also does his own podcast. So I don't know where he finds time to be an awesome dad and husband, but somehow, Dave Schwartz, you managed to do it all. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, it's good. Good to talk to you both. It's been a while. It's amazing how much time you have when you change careers, but I find a little time where I can, and it's fun. It's a little bit of everything, but it has been an interesting change in life, that's for sure. But good to talk to you both.
I know a lot of people, when they listen to our show and we have people on, they love the peek behind the curtains. And just before we started, we were saying how, weekends off. Well, you don't really get weekends off when it comes to the NHL. But when it's in the off season, you might. When you made that transition, because I know, Dave, you have loved hockey from probably the womb, and to now work for the Wild, it's got to be a dream come true in a different way. But making that transition from television and sports has got to be kind of mind bending, huh?
It's been a really enjoyable transition. The good thing is my job is more on the business side of things in terms of internal communications, engagement, proactive PR, and that aspect. So thankfully, I don't have to be at all the games. I get to a couple when I need to, but I do actually. It's kind of nice. I do actually get most weekends off and most weeknights off. Wow. The occasional game I have to be at, which is just incredible. It's been really interesting. I have been told a number of times that it is okay to let emails go on weekends and that you don't have to answer them on weekends. I never get called on weekends unless it's a really big emergency. So, which is different. When you work for 20 years on a daily deadline, a 5, 6, 10 o'clock deadline, when you're sitting in a meeting and someone's telling you that your deadline is, in June or 3 weeks from now or a month from now, it's just very different. It's like, oh, okay, that this isn't so bad. So there's a bit more strategic planning to it because, as you know, both of you in the news business, you don't have time to be strategic. You just got to get it done as fast as you can and as well as you can. So it's been fun in that aspect. It's been really cool to see and learn about the business of sports and events, and a lot of the people that I knew from a media side on the other side, and now get to know them on this side of things and see how they work, how they interact with people, how they lead their company. And, it starts with Craig Leopold, and that sounds kind of silly, but if you've ever dealt with him on the media side, you probably have enjoyed your interaction. And it's the same when you work here. He is that way with every employee, whether you are a star center or you are the custodian. He's a good human being, and that trickles down. So it's been kind of cool to be behind the scenes a little bit in that aspect and see how everything gets done. And it's just been a whole lot of fun and a new change and transition in my life.
He also has a really cool yacht I saw a couple of years ago when I was on vacation. All the neighbors were saying, Dave Schwartz. Yeah. I was literally somewhere in St. Thomas, and all the natives were talking about the wild, and no one knew what they were talking about. And I looked because I saw this beautiful yacht out in Megan's Bay, and they go, the wild guy owns it, and I'm like, who's the wild guy? And then finally the bartender said, the man who owns Minnesota Wild. Have you heard of them? I go, as a matter of fact, I live in Minnesota. Yes, I do. I think he calls it the Loon. I don't know if that's the official name, but it's beautiful.
His boat and my boat are markedly different.
Totally different.
I have an 18-foot fiberglass fishing boat. His is a little bit nicer, but I love to fish, so it works for me. But yeah, he does. He has a beautiful yacht that I believe I think he rents it out to some very big celebrities.
I think you're right.
At one point in time, there was an Instagram account for it. I don't know if it's still the case.
Oh, I got to search that
Yeah, I don't
now.
remember what it was, but I think it had one.
I think it also had a slide off the back too. It was pretty cool. I am talking to you today, and when this comes out, it's not going to be exactly today. We're talking on Monday, but my heart is broken from the Boston College Eagles losing last night in the NCAAs. And so I'm sure Billy Guerin and Matt Boldy, I'm sure they're not happy as well. Everyone else probably laughing, especially my friends at BU like Vanita Sakar. But how much do when you talk to Billy, do you see, I mean, you're a native New Yorker, when you talk to Billy Guerin and you got the East Coast flow going, how fun is that for you?
I stay away from talking hockey with him because he has forgotten more than I ever know. But he loves his hockey, and he loves his East Coast. I was actually watching. I was saying that everyone here you think that everyone is sad that Denver won. I'm sad that Denver won because I'm hoping that if we get Denver out of the postseason, then maybe Zeev will come. I don't know, but I don't have any inside info, but I think I'd really love him to get here. And the only way that even has a chance of happening is if he's done playing his college season. So I was watching that game last night, strongly rooting for BC. And I was going to text you, like, I am really wanting Boston College to win this. I don't know if they will. And Zeev ended up having a great game. He's such a good player. I'm super excited to see him whenever that time comes in Minnesota. But, we can't have a chance at it while his team's still playing.
No, not at all, obviously. And not that I would root for him to have a disappointing end to his college season and come here right away. But I was hoping for that selfishly for my BC Eagles. Yes, I was.
But you mentioned, I think a lot of people were.
Yeah, I think even the broadcasters were saying that. Like, oh, I think Billy Guerin is. And Bill's probably like, yeah, I was. You don't have to say it. Selfishly. Yeah. I wanted to talk to you too about the past couple of years have just been fun for this team, but especially so this year. And even in light, yes, we saw Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson come back and hit the ice. I know that they're not ready for games yet, but to still have such a fun and good season, even when two of your top stars are down, there's something special going on with this team, don't you think?
I do. I think so. And you can see it in the way that they play. I think I don't think John Hines has gotten enough credit. Not to be a blatant homer here, but with largely the same roster as last year, although some much bigger injuries, he has still managed to keep this team in the postseason picture. And if you can do that without the guy who's your third leading scorer but has only played 37 games, that's pretty darn good. And so he's getting a feel for the team and I think the connections of some guys and making changes as needed. And a lot of that is due to finally having a full off season, I think, under his belt. But I agree. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think that a lot of people thought the Wild, that this was going to be our year. I really didn't. I think that would be something that is, that people say inside here, but here we are. The chemistry of this team is outstanding. The leadership is outstanding. Philip Gustafsson, I mean, what else can you say? The guy is one of the best goalies in the National Hockey League right now. Some of the numbers he puts up are video game like. They're eye popping. And so I mean, it's just all coming together. And we talk a lot about windows of opportunity for teams to win. And I do feel like the Wild are at the window now. Like it's opening. Is it wide open? I don't think it's safe to say that with if we don't have Kaprizov back on the ice just yet, but it's opening. And I do feel like, and I think a lot of people feel like here in the next few years that it's going to be our turn to make some hay.
You talk about the opening and windows. I think when Brad Marchand was just traded, and he spoke candidly, he was talking to the Bruins fans that were so upset that he was traded away, and he says, we were really good for a long time. There was times where we had that open window and we didn't make that brass ring. I think players, management, yes, because they build teams and they know the windows, but players are so aware of that window that you talk about. You can feel that in the room, right? Even like you said, the window's just starting to open, but I think players, they know that, don't they?
Yeah, and it's so hard because on paper at the beginning of the season, you can look at your window and say, this is it. This is our chance right here. But you can't control everything. You can't control if your best guy goes on a cold streak. You can't control if someone gets hurt, an injury, a lousy schedule, a bunch of back-to-back games against teams that are all in the playoff picture. Things like that just happen to kind of mess with that a little bit. But they know it. I mean, these guys are smart. There may not be scoreboard watching all the time, but everyone knows what's going on in the league. And you can objectively look at your roster and say, okay, listen, we got Matt Boldy, who's a young player and is on his way up. Marco Rossi on his way up. Kirill Kaprizov on his way up. Certainly Brock Faber on his way up. I mean, you have all these guys that you look at from this team that are on their way up, and they're impact players, not just bit players. Liam Ogren, another one who's going to be really good. And there's guys that aren't even here yet. And so I think they're smart. I think players can look at a roster and go, okay, we're almost there. We just need a little bit of health. We just need to get out of this cap situation that we're in. And then it's really going to be our turn. And I think they're smart. I think hockey players, maybe even more than others, are just so realistic about what the expectations are and what it takes to reach them. And I think Billy Guerin is really realistic about it. He understands. He is honestly one of the smartest hockey guys that I've ever had the pleasure of even chatting with. And in terms of not just knowledge, but who he surrounds himself with. The GMs, the scouts. Judd Brackett has done such a good job scouting for this team and finding some of these players. We talked about Zeev Buium. I mean, he was what many people call was the steal of the draft last year.
Right.
And they didn't, they got him later. So, to surround yourself with those guys and understand that the organization is going in the right direction, I don't think that that's a mystery to anybody inside our walls.
What I also love this year, and you're part of this, is witnessing Flower's final year and his relationship with Gus. You talk about Gus having a great season, and just how Marc-Andre Fleury is loving every bit of it, supporting Gus like no tomorrow, almost like he's, like his brother. Yeah. And just the class, when we saw Ovechkin bring all of the guys back onto the ice just to shake his hand and give him his due, and just how Flower handles that whole thing, and just how he's embracing it with that huge smile of his, it is something to behold.
And not every person, Dawn, and you know this, not every player is willing to accept that role. To basically groom your ultimate franchise replacement. And when Marc-Andre Fleury came in here, he, I think, realized pretty quickly that was part of his job. Now, he's still one of the best goaltenders ever to play the game. He's going to be in the National Hockey League Hall of Fame. He's putting up some crazy numbers this year. He still plays. You see those glimpses every now and then of just like, oh my gosh, how did he save that? How does he do that? Right. And a side note, like I heard Bob Woods, who used to be a goalie coach here many years ago. I know you remember him, Don.
Uh-huh.
He told me, he's like, people think that as you get older, it all breaks down for goalies. Goalies are actually better as they get older because they're smarter with their angles. They know
yes.
they are, how to get to the spot that you need to quicker. And so like Flower still got it, but it takes a lot to accept that role. And he's done it. He also, I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times. We did our own internal media day here that we do where, our digital team has these guys, they have pictures and videos and all this stuff to do. And I got the pleasure of being able to walk around and spend 2 hours with Marc-Andre Fleury, which I will honestly say is something I'll always remember, first of all. He's hilarious. He's got a great sense of humor. We have to fill out a sheet of information. And I asked him who his favorite band was. And he said, what do you think is funny? He goes, oh, Celine Dion. Everybody will love that. I mean, like, we just got a good kick out of it. But what sticks with me and what I remember is we're walking around the practice facility, and he's got, I think, 8 to 10 different stops where he has to read a liner or do an interview or do a radio interview, these different kinds of things. And it takes a long time. It takes a lot of their day in the morning. He starts in his just kind of sweatpants, and then has to go get changed in all of his goalie gear and come back out and do it again. But in the middle of all that, we're walking past the skate rental area of Tria Rink, where the guys always walk in and see the attendants there. Marc-Andre, as we're walking, takes a detour from where we're going, walks all the way over there to say hello and shake their hands and ask them how their summer was. And wow. It just struck me because he didn't have to do that. They wouldn't have thought anything. Nobody would have thought anything of it. But here's a guy who is one of the greatest goaltenders of all time. And on a day where so much is being asked of him, takes a few minutes to go over and say hi to the attendants that work there. And right. I truly think that's a character you see of certain players. And we have a lot of those guys on this team. There's no doubt about it. But when Marc-Andre Fleury does that, it's just kind of sits with you, and that's something out of that morning that will always resonate with me, is just that moment where he went over, shook their hands, took the time to chat with them and asked them how their summer was. And I just thought that was really cool.
That is cool. And, thing about Fleury is he's built that reputation day by day for years. I have friends who live in Vegas who love him. Obviously, Canadians love him. Americans love him. Everywhere he goes, he builds a fan base. The only other person I can think of who really did it that way was LaTroy Hawkins, who became this great ambassador for baseball, every place he went. But Fleury is, a higher ranking player in his sport than LaTroy was in his. So it's even more impressive in that regard. All right, let me say some thank yous here. Natrium.com, Natreum.com. Go to the mothership store in St. Louis Park. Go to Natrium.com. I recommend going to the store in St. Louis Park as your first step. They have so many different products. You're going to want a specialist to help you find exactly the flavors, dosage, delivery systems that you like. I like the sleep gummies, and I like the balms for muscle pains and tendonitis and joint pain. You put that balm on, it'll work within 15 minutes. You're not waiting for a prescription to go through your system or an over-the-counter medication to go through your system. It just works right away. They have oils for happy guts. They have quick fix stuff. If you have stress, they can just settle you down. And again, a million flavors, great beverages to drink that taste great. And you're going to feel good the next day. You might feel good immediately, and you're definitely going to feel better the next day. So go to Natrium.com, check it all out. We are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studios. We do want to thank Aquarius Home Services. Finally, a Minnesota company that does great work. We want to thank Minnesota Masonic Charities.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota, or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. I am happy that Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Minnesota Bound and this podcast as a place to help spread the word. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
And back to Don.
Well, Dave, you talked about Marc-Andre Fleury's sense of humor. And a couple of years ago, I did a sit-down one-on-one with him. And of course, you have to talk about his practical jokes, right? Well known that he and Sidney Crosby, have this back and forth. And he also has some classic ones here with his teammates. But I asked him what his all-time favorite one was. And I'm going to put you hot on the trail too, because he didn't say who the player was. So I don't know if the player was over this or not. And, he just smiles, a big smile, right? And he was like, actually, my best one was, he goes, when you go to the hotels that we stay at, and some of them are really nice hotels, he says, when you get out, like if you're on the 5th floor, you get out on your floor and, there's kind of like a little lobby there. He goes, and some hotels have a bigger area right outside the elevator than others. He goes, this had a big outside the elevator on your floor area. He recreated that player's bedroom right there. And he must have had help. He goes, oh, yeah, I got some help. He had some inside help from the hotel. I mean, he said everything. He brought the computer, the clothes. They reenacted, like he said, the bed, like all there. And they took the guy out for drinks, obviously, right? And so the guy gets to his floor, and I would pay money to find out who this player is. And it goes ding, and it opens up, and it's his room, like right there. He's like, what? I'm like, he pulls out the most classic practical jokes.
He does.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, his wife has to be a saint probably if he pulls them all at home and with his kids, but he has to be the most fun dad growing up if he does that. But I want to find out who that player is that he pulled that off on.
I wish I knew.
That's hilarious.
I wish I knew.
I know.
I feel like I've heard about it before, but he's great. He what I love about it, and I think what's really most important about who he is and how he handles himself is that this just kind of galvanizes a locker room, I think, to have that kind of guy. When you have someone who is going to be the leader of your locker room simply because of his credentials, his pedigree, who he is, and he makes it light and fun and brotherly and family like that matters. And those kind of guys matter. And it's funny, you were talking about, who he might remind you of, Jim. I instantly, when you started bringing that up, thought of Jim Thome when he was with the Twins. I mean, he came in later in his career, but like every time a visiting a visiting team would come, I just remember all the media coming over, and I thought Jim Thome could run for office in any of the markets that he's been in. And I kind of feel the same way about Marc-Andre Fleury, that if he wanted to go into politics, he probably would win in a landslide. There's few guys in sports that have that aura. And I think those two, to me, kind of, there's some similarities there.
Wow. I didn't know Jim Thome that well. You knew more than I did, Jim, but I absolutely agree with that. Like, he won over the city, and was he a year here or two tops, right? Crazy. Oh my goodness. One more thing about Flower before we move on. I want to find out how you ended up loving hockey, like even as a kid. I know New York is, the East Coast has it, but I asked him once, I go, like you probably got away with a lot with just smiling, right? Like he has that smile, like that gets him out of trouble. That's what I thought. And he said, that's what my billet mom, when he was like in Nova Scotia or PEI, like in that area. I mean, he left as a young teenager and he didn't really know English that well at first. And he said, my billet mom said, all you need to do if you don't know what they're saying, just smile with that smile of yours and that little impish kind of wink. Just smile. It'll get you out of anything. And he goes, I still use that to this day.
I bet. Well, it
he
also
knows
helps
English,
but when your goals against average is what his is too. And you're, I mean, how many games has he bailed his teammates out of over the years? They're going to let him get away with a lot.
Yeah. And just smile, just smile.
Mm-hmm.
When we first met, I mean, gosh, I've been here going on my 21st year in Minnesota. I'm not sure when you first got here. It's got to be around 2005 or 6, right? When did you get here?
It was, 2007. Yep.
Yeah, right around there. You and I instantly connected being East Coast, but also hockey. And I don't know if all the years I've known you, I've ever asked, how did you grow up playing it? How did you end up? Because you and I would always talk hockey when we saw each other. We'd be at Vikings and we'd be talking like, how much I hated the Rangers. But how'd you get into it?
Yeah, I mean, I started playing when I was 11. I actually was a swimmer when I was younger, and I actually had to beg my mom for like 3 years to let me play hockey, and she kept saying, "No, I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. I'm afraid you're going to get hurt." And I think my logic to her was something like, Mom, God gives people swimmers' bodies and God gives people hockey player bodies, and I don't have a swimmer's body. At the time I'm like 5'9". I'm chunky, portly at best.
You were not
and
portly.
Well, when I was a kid, I was short arms and short legs too. So like, I'm not a great swimmer here. And so she finally relented and let me start playing hockey. And then, that's where I'm like, oh, wait a second. I can hit people and run over people. And this is amazing. And I just loved it. I love the game. I love everything about it. I'm 46 now. I still play once a week with a men's league. And I don't know that, my wife asks me all the time when I'm going to stop. I don't know. The medical bills certainly get more expensive as I get older, with each year. But it's just, I love the game. I've always loved it. I grew up watching college hockey at RPI in Troy, New York. My very good friend had season tickets, so I got to watch a little bit of the Adam Oates, Joe Juneau era.
Yes.
And I fell in love. We had a local team in Albany, the Albany River Rats, which I like to regularly remind Brad Bombardier that I grew up watching him, which he says makes him feel very old, but I did. And I just love the game. And I was a Gretzky fan growing up. I was with him I started when I likened him when he was with the Kings, and then kind of traveled my allegiances with him. I skipped the St. Louis Blues. And then, because I think he was only there for half a season, then he became a Ranger. He became a New York Ranger, and I stayed with him. I don't remember how many years he was there. It wasn't very long, but then I just kind of stayed as a Ranger fan until I got older, of course, because I'm no longer a Ranger fan, obviously. But
yes.
It's always been with me, and I'm just very grateful that I get to turn this chapter of my career now and work for a professional hockey team, because it's a dream. I mean, it's just a great organization to work in, and I'm around hockey every day, but I don't have to necessarily be at the rink every day, which is great. I get to do a lot of really cool things, like help out with our Willie O'Ree skills competition that the NHL had here in Minnesota last week, where kids from all different backgrounds came here from all over the country and got to meet with Anson Carter and others around the league, the head coach of Tennessee State University, the great community stuff that we get to do. So I get to be a part of that too, which is really fun and kind of gives your job a whole lot more meaning when you have that brand and you get to go out and use it to do good things in our community. It's just been really exciting. And so long story longer, first time I picked up a stick, first time I played a game, I didn't know what offsides was. I couldn't understand why everybody didn't just stand next to the goal and wait for the puck to come to you. But I eventually learned what offsides was. And then, I just said, I'm like, why are you guys all leaving the zone? I'm like, okay, don't block me. I'm going to stay right here. And then they blow the whistle, and I got offsides for the 7th time that game. So, and I've been with it ever since. I watch it at all levels. My son plays. This past season, I've coached my son for, I think, and his group of friends since they were like 7 years old, 8 years old. This was our last year together. They were second-year Bantams. And so I coached my son. My wife did the play-by-play on YouTube for the team and had a blast. It was like a family affair. So I'm very grateful for what the game has given me and my family, because I could never repay it enough. It's been awesome.
Well, when you talk about just all the things that you get to do now, and the hockey community is just so tight. We saw that Jack Jablonski says it again and again. So many people that he did not even know. Some of the NHL coaches that had never met him flew out and waited 2 hours just to he's not having a good day. Well, I'm just going to wait here. And I just want to say hi. You would have think they knew each other. I think that is the spirit of the hockey community that I at least have known ever since I fell in love with the game. And then my very first job working in hockey was at Nesson, covering the Bruins. And then I was the Bruins studio host. You get to be around them in so many other times when it's not game time and it's not TV time. You just get to see how the community of hockey is and how they are to each other. And you get to meet your legends. And I would say in the sport of hockey, and I find some as well in other sports, but more so in the sport of hockey, when you're always afraid to meet your heroes, right? Because they might turn out to be jerks. And I have found that in hockey, I'm very seldomly disappointed. How about you?
Same. I don't think I've ever been disappointed by anybody, not in the hockey playing world, at least. I once got to interview Gretzky, which was not a great experience for me, but only because I was so nervous I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. He was wonderful and very cordial as I stumbled over myself and had sweat dripping down my arm as I was trying to hold the microphone. I was so nervous, but yeah, it is. You're right. It's a different community. We love this game and we give back, and we're going to give back to it. And it starts honestly, it starts when you're a youth, I mean, I remember when our good friend, Chris Long, who works over at KSTP, his daughters were starting hockey. And so I passed him along my gear from my daughter, who she had outgrown, which we got when we did the Little Wild program, which is a great program that we do here. You get a month of hockey, and it's dirt cheap, frankly, in terms of hockey standards. And so I gave the gear to Chris, and he goes, well, let me pay you for it. I said, no. He goes, well, why not? I said, well, I'm kind of a little bit like a dealer. Here you get the first one for free, and then you're going to pay a lot of money down the line. Trust me. But, that's what you do. You pass it along, right?
You hook them in.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah. You can have the helmet for free. No, I gave him the gear. You pass it along, right? And then he passed it along, but that's hockey. Now it is an NHL initiative to make hockey be for everyone. What can we do to get everybody else in this great game that we love? We reach out to underrepresented communities, and we have events to, hockey is for me that Matt Dumba kicked off here a few years ago. And he did an awesome job. And the NHL is serious about hockey being for everyone. The Minnesota Wild launched the Skate It Forward program this year. The Wild Foundation did. And ultimately, one day, with some help and a lot of great philanthropy, we're going to be able to pay the first year of every kid ice time fees who wants to play hockey. That's a bit of a stretch goal. We'll get there. But in the meantime, guarding that community hockey model is important to the Minnesota Wild because we give back. That's what we do in hockey. We grow the community by giving back to it, which gave to us. And I agree with you. I'm biased because I've never seen it anywhere else, but it's just, that is the way that we do things here. And I've seen that at the league level as well. And it is really special.
It is. And I love how you mentioned, both you and Chris, with your daughters. Recently, I think you posted on social media, a girl dad, and you had a face mask on. And I'm not talking hockey. I'm talking like a facial, it was like it was a pretty one. And I was like, you know what? His pores will thank him for that. But you embrace it. You're like Marcus Foligno. I love seeing really guys be girl dads and kind of bring them into the sport of hockey. You see some of the younger girls, I forget what team it was, reading the lineup in the locker room, who's playing that day, and our dad, and that kind of stuff, and just embracing girls and at such a young age. I mean, in Minnesota, we're used to girls and then young women playing hockey. That's not so across this country or in other countries. So I just love it that you lead the way by example.
Well, my daughter loves to watch hockey with me. She loves Wild games. She loves Frost games. We got to go to the Frost championship game here last year and had a blast. And she played for a little while, but she actually does dance and she loves it. And it is her passion. And I love nothing more than to see her dance and have her fun. And I will tell you that many people commented on my skin today about how smooth it was. And I said, well, I did a face mask and then I was moisturizing,
Yes.
In all seriousness, this is truly, I feel as a dad, it's the most important relationship that your daughter can have is with you, right? Is you're the first love of her life, and you hope that you set her up to look for someone better who will make her feel just as special as she was to you. So I love our times. I've learned more. I never thought I'd know the entire Frozen soundtrack back to front. I never thought that I would go to an Olivia Rodrigo concert. So I get a lot of firsts with her. And my son as well. We do a lot of, I've learned a lot from him too, but there is something special about being a girl dad. And it's the funny thing is I don't think as you get older, you really think as a guy, you think about what it's going to be like to have a daughter. You always think about what it's going to be like to have a son, right? Like, oh, my son, and we'll do this together. But all of a sudden, it hits you out of left field, like, whoa, here is this awesome little human being who helps you grow and can melt your heart in an instant and make you literally do whatever that she wants you to do. And you'll say yes because it's her. And so I've always said that I'm wrapped around her finger tight, and I absolutely don't mind it.
It sounds, my dad told the story, and I don't remember this because I was little. And he said, once your mom was off, out with her sister, and the boys were all doing things. So it was me and you. And I left you for 2 seconds in the kitchen. Dawn, 2 seconds. And I'm like, okay. He goes, I came back and you're in the middle of the kitchen floor with flour all over the place and basically the bag on your head. And I came back and I was like, Dawn, what am I going to do with you? And I go, I don't remember any of that. And he goes, well, I remember what you said. And I go, what? He said, just love me, Daddy. And he goes,
that's
hooked.
He
put like the pinky in the cheek, hooked from then on out. My dad knew nothing about hockey, but they bought me my first Beefy Mahoney. His name was Wayne Mahoney. He was our neighbor across the street. He would always say, come on, we're going to go play hockey. And he was a couple of years, 5 years older than us. And we'd go out and we'd just play on the ponds. Like, so you kept skates. Like even when you were in high school, get your first car, you had I had hand-me-down skates from the neighbors because my brothers didn't. My mom's like, where is this hockey and skating coming from? Now, there was no girls' team when I was younger to play. And then in high school, I ended up playing soccer and I was a dancer. But I loved the Bruins and I wanted to watch. So my parents bought me my own TV and said I could watch the Bruins as long as I was very quiet when I was in bed. And they said we knew they scored because we'd hear, yes! Oh, shh. Like I'd shush myself ever since.
That's awesome.
And so fast forward, my poor dad still didn't know anything about hockey. And he was Fletch. Like he did not know names. He would mess it up. Like, he'd mess up Dave Schwartz. He'd call you like, Dean Sports or something like that. And he didn't care. Like he was Fletch. He'd be like, whatever. Brooklyn guy. So he would always try to talk hockey with me. And he's like, hey, Dawn, I hear that the Wild traded for Lindy Ruff. And I'm like, no, Dad.
No.
He's retired. He doesn't play. Nope. I'm telling you. And, he'd throw in a couple of like, BS it is. I'm telling you. I read it. And I'm like, no. And so I'm racking my brain and I go, Dad, do you mean Mike Rupp? Do you mean Rupp? And he'd go, Ruff, whatever. I don't know. And so he didn't care. But I said, oh my God. Like I hung up the phone and my friend said, what was that conversation? And I said, my dad trying to learn hockey still in his ripe old age.
But he's making the effort, right? At least he's making the effort.
He goes, my daughter likes the sport that I don't understand. He was football, baseball, but you're right. Like that love between daughter and dad can even go to hockey. Dave Schwartz can even go to hockey.
Yep. All it takes is that effort, right? Just I messed up. I purposefully mess up stuff all the time with my kids.
Do you?
But they laugh and we get a good chuckle out of it. And I think I guess it's important too, as a parent, it is okay to show that you're not perfect and that is sometimes the effort is enough. And if you come up a little short, that's okay. At least you're taking an interest. And goodness knows I've tried my hand at video games with my son and not done very well. So, but I tried.
Call of Duty,
had
Call of Death.
Yeah, we had a Fortnite. We tried Fortnite. No, what was the other? He played Fortnite, but they played Minecraft. Both my kids played Minecraft. And I would try to play with them. I didn't know what I was doing. I would just dig a hole all the way down as far as I could. And they would get so mad at me. They'd say, you can't keep doing that. I said, no, lets me do it. See, I'm keep going. Like, no, you can, but you're not doing anything in the game. I'm like, I don't even understand what I'm doing or what I'm not doing. So you make the effort.
Oh, well, Dave, I could talk to you all day long. Could you please promise to come back on our podcast here?
Of course.
That'd be awesome.
I would love to. And I'm glad that we got to catch up. We've caught up. Dawn, I've seen you a few times in the last 3 years, but it's good to catch up with both of you. And I'm glad because the journalism industry is it's filled with what, as Randy Shaver used to say, it's the island of misfit toys. And it is, but we all stay good friends and tight. And so I'm glad to catch up with both of you.
Yeah, I know. I try to tell people, I say, sometimes we in sports know each other better than in our own newsrooms, right? Because we're all out at the same thing. It's how I know Jim. It's how I know you. Or your own
families sometimes. You spend more time with them than your own family.
My goodness. Well, Dave, good luck. I know that you guys start your road trip with the Devils tonight. They're feisty. And then you're doing your native New York swing there. You go to the Rangers. You don't like them anymore. The Islanders.
Which
and
I
then
was
back
going to say,
home.
we'll tell everybody that I only root for the Wild when they play the Rangers, I swear.
There you go. But we're putting that out there official right now. Only the Wild, people. Doesn't matter
Yes.
where you're from. It's where you are.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Dave Schwartz from Minnesota Wild. He's the senior manager of communications engagement for Minnesota Wild. So if you have anything that you need that way or want to promote or think you guys can do with the great sport of hockey, you can reach out to Schwartz of Sports, right?
Of course, anytime.
Even
We're
though
always
it's Schwartz of
looking for-
hockey.
It's Schwartz. Yeah, my sports are limited now, although I do still keep up with others. It is nice to just worry about hockey. That's it.
That's awesome. Dave, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.